Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Leonardo Fonseca, and I'm going to talk about the main points of our most recent work in this video. There are several groups studying cancer, and a great number of papers have been published correlating changes in the cell's glycophenotype with the onset of chemotherapy resistance or with epithelial to mesenchymal transition. There's also a great amount of data that suggests that EMT and drug resistance go hand in hand. It should come as no surprise that there should be links between EMT, drug resistance, and changes in glycophenotype. With this in mind, we set out to seek out such links, and in this particular phase, the goal was to establish resistant cell lines that we could use to verify the changes in the classical EMT markers and in Glycan epitopes, and check for intersections. The first order of business was, of course, establishing cell lines. It's important to note that we didn't want resistant cells with outrageous resistance levels. We wanted resistance levels that are actually observed in clinical practice. So we used very low concentrations of PAC, so that after 3 months, we had resistant cell lines that exhibited approximately half the original IC50. We also wanted to verify if we were able to induce a cross-resistance phenotype. Cell viability assays with 3 different drugs, aside from paclitaxel, showed us that we were indeed able to induce a multi-drug resistance phenotype, and now we had to assess the changes responsible for this resistance. MDR phenotypes are almost never due to a single reason, but one of the most well-known and common reasons is the overexpression of ABC transporters. So, we checked their expressions by RT-qPCR and flow cytometry. As it can be seen in the upper graphs, the expression for the 3 most well-studied transporters, ABCC1, ABCB1, and G2, are increased in the resistant cell lines. It is also possible to see increased transport activity for ABCC1 and ABCG2, but not ABCB1. Next, we investigated the mRNA expression for a few of the most important genes involved with the apoptosis pathways. And as we can see, the anti-apoptotic genes BCL, XL, and BCL2 have their expressions increased, as opposed to the pro-apoptotic BAX and caspase-3, which are reduced. Next, we evaluated the expression of epithelial to mesenchymal transition markers. We found that both total fibronectin and oncofetal fibronectin had their expressions increase, which is common for the EMT process. The twist here was that there was no Cadering switch, which is a hallmark of EMT. So we ended up with cells that have a mixed epithelial to mesenchymal profile. Not a common occurrence in literature, but I suspect it's much more common in the normal development of cancer tissues. We also wanted to see what sort of changes we could find regarding Glycan epitopes, and we came to the conclusion that there was a reduction in the expression of MGAT3 with an accompanying increase in the expression of MGAT5, which is closely related to increases in cell motility in metastasis. We also saw changes in CLU transferases, which have been many times correlated to the emergence of resistance phenotypes. We also wanted to check if the changes in the cells actually changed their behavior in some aspect. Even if there was no full transition to a mesenchymal phenotype, there were some changes that are related to it, like the increase of MGAT5 and fibronectin expression, so we performed a very simple wound healing assay that shows us that resistant cell lines have progressively increased motility. To sum it up, we managed to induce an MDR phenotype in cancer cells with a very low drug concentration, not unlike the levels that would reach the innermost cells of solid tumors. This phenotype involves increased expression activity of ABC transporters, changes in oncogenes, and compromised apoptotic pathways. The same process also led to changes in fibronectin expression, but not so much in cadherins, leading us to a partially mesenchymal phenotype. And all of that was accompanied by changes in the Glycan epitopes, especially those affected by MGAT and ST-Gal genes, which regulate the number and position of branches in N-glycan chains and the placing of sialic acid molecules. And last but not least, I want to take the time to thank the funding agencies. Without them, none of that would be possible. Thank you all for listening.